What a start to life in Pittsburgh it has been for Aaron Rodgers. It all began in week 1 with a flaying of the team who discarded him last year, the New York Jets. Now, 2 weeks later, his boys are sitting at 2-1. And there is real hope of a bright season ahead, one where Mike Tomlin and company might finally be able to shed their good but not good enough status, as Rodgers gets more and more comfortable in the Steelers system, and with a crumbling AFC around him, a scary truth is beginning to emerge. Maybe, just maybe, we all underestimated these Pittsburgh Steelers. In many ways, it was fitting that the first team to suffer at the hands of Rodgers' new-look Steelers were his previous employers, the New York Jets. As we all know, the Jets have been a quarterback graveyard for decades at this point, and the team has still been searching for that franchise starter since the retirement of Joe Namath almost 50 years ago. In the 2023 offseason, Rodgers became a free agent after 15 Hall of Fame seasons in Green Bay, in which he won 4 MVPs, was named a Pro Bowler 10 times, and was one of the most feared and respected quarterbacks the game had ever seen. But the Packers chose to move on, and the QB-hungry Jets snapped him up, hoping that he would finally be the man to turn around one of the league's most cursed franchises. That did not happen. Just 4 plays into his Jets debut, he suffered an Achilles tear that stopped his 2023 season dead in its tracks. Then, when he returned in 2024, he was fine. He didn't look like his previous brilliant best, and it led many to wonder if his best days were behind him. He put up 3,897 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions for a passer rating of 90.5, numbers that most quarterbacks would be reasonably happy with, but numbers that represent the worst season of Aaron Rodgers' career. This is not what the Jets had in mind when they splashed out $112.5 million over 3 years for his services. But these numbers require context. And, of course, the context here is that the New York Jets are one of the worst-run franchises in American sports and have been unable to set up any quarterback to succeed there for a very long time. Rodgers was hindered by injuries on the O-line to Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, and he often looked unsettled in the pocket. For a man who usually looked so cool, calm, and collected in Green Bay, it was clear that he didn't look or feel the same in New Jersey. Obviously, coaching was a big issue in New York as well. Robert Saleh was fired as head coach during the 2024 season after a 2-3 start, before being replaced by defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich, who was not at all suitable for the top job. Under Ulbrich, the Jets were even worse, going 3-9, and it seemed that Rodgers wasn't fully clicking with his new defensive-minded head coach. By the time the season came to an end, it was clear that the Rodgers-Jets marriage wasn't working out, and the Jets were happy to let him walk in the 2025 offseason. To many, this was the end for Aaron Rodgers as a starting NFL quarterback. The team that took their chances with Rodgers was the Pittsburgh Steelers, another franchise which has been in quarterback purgatory since the retirement of Ben Roethlisberger in 2021. This was an interesting match between one of the league's most respected coaches in Mike Tomlin and the often brash, outspoken Rodgers, who spent some of the previous few seasons calling out media personalities and appearing to be a distraction to some, with various off-field controversies. One man happy to write off Rodgers before he even suited up in the black and gold was Terry Bradshaw, Steelers quarterback of the 1970s and 80s and a 4-time Super Bowl champion.
What are you going to bring him in for 1 year? Are you kidding me? I mean,
that's not the Steelers' way, right?
No, man, that guy needs to stay in California and go, somewhere and chew on bark and whisper to the gods out there.
100%.
But then when he played, when he talked, when he led, none of those things came to fruition. And so if you're going to get Aaron Rodgers, the player, you have to know you're getting a diminished Aaron Rodgers with all the ego, all the arrogance, all the things that came along with being a 4-time MVP.
In short, these two men were missing the scary truth which has now been laid bare after just 1 week of the NFL season, that Aaron Rodgers still has one of the most electrifying skill sets the league has ever seen, and he's not going away anytime soon. Regardless of the criticism from Bradshaw, Clark, and so many more in the NFL media, Tomlin decided that Rodgers was his man and signed him to a one-year deal worth $13.65 million on June 6th. There are so many reasons why this move looked good for both parties, but let's start with the obvious. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not the New York Jets. By that, we mean that this is a team with a culture, a standard, and a revered head coach who commands respect across the league as a winner, but also as a player's coach. Mike Tomlin has come in for some criticism in recent years as the Steelers have continually stumbled to 9-8, but most of the league would kill for a coach as good as him, able to grind out victories in tough situations and not having a losing season when trotting out Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Mitch Trubisky to start under center. Compare this to Jeff Ulbricht's New York Jets, and this was always going to be a better fit for Rodgers, or really any other quarterback. Tomlin knows more than most in this game, and he was acutely aware of exactly what he was getting himself into and was more confident than so many others that Rodgers still had plenty left in the tank and is ready, and more motivated than ever, to prove everybody else wrong. Beyond coaching though, this Steelers team has plenty of offensive weapons for Rodgers to play with and get the best out of. The most exciting of these is fellow new addition DK Metcalf. The Steelers picked up Metcalf in free agency after 6 impressive years in Seattle, where he averaged over 1,000 yards a season, and were hoping for more of the same in the Steel City. Metcalf is one of the most ridiculous athletes to ever play the position, and it's impossible to talk about him without mentioning his absurd physique, weighing in at 229 pounds of pure muscle. But there's far more to his game than just his build, and he's been a #1 receiver in this league for a while. He replaces George Pickens in that role, who departed for Dallas after 3 productive but erratic seasons in Pittsburgh, often overshadowed by off-field issues. Rodgers' other options in the passing game include third-year starter Calvin Austin III, who showed flashes throughout his first 2 seasons, and a superb tight end duo of Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth. Smith is a fantastic run-after-catch threat who is coming off a career year, and Freiermuth has put up 18 touchdowns over the last 4 seasons, despite some inconsistent at best quarterback play. Add in a defense that has ranked in the top 10 for scoring in each of the last 2 seasons, led by the likes of TJ Watt, Patrick Queen, Darius Slay, and new addition Jalen Ramsey, and you get a squad that just needed that upgrade at the sport's most important position of all. So, is 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers that significant of an upgrade? To put it as emphatically as possible, yes. Yes, he is. In the season opener, Rodgers turned the clock back and put on an absolute clinic in what was a perfect revenge for him to kick off life as a Steeler. The Jets had had one of the best to ever do it on their roster for 2 seasons, and yet still didn't see what the Steelers showed them on Sunday afternoon. Quite simply, this was vintage Aaron Rodgers. He might not quite be the athlete he was a decade ago, but when he rolls out of the pocket and throws on the move, he looks like the same guy that lit up defenses in Green Bay for all those years. His first touchdown pass as a Steeler was exactly that, finding Ben Skowronek for a 22-yard score for only his 2nd touchdown catch in his 5th season in the league. It doesn't matter who he's throwing to, Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers. That score on the team's opening drive really set the tone for Rodgers and his offense. He threw 4 touchdowns on the day to 4 different men, showing that he's had no difficulty adapting to his new system and his new targets, because he's Aaron Rodgers, and only a franchise as cursed and as sorry as the New York Jets wouldn't be able to get that out of him, even at the age of 41. The biggest of Rodgers' many strengths was always how careful he was with the football, and his career interception percentage of 1.4% is still the best the league has ever seen. His elite football IQ and decision-making is one of those things that you just don't lose with time, as the Jets found out in Week 1, with Rodgers completing 22 of 30 passes for 244 yards and not a single pick to go with his 4 touchdowns. But as we've said, you don't need the numbers to see how great Aaron Rodgers is. He's still surgical, he's still precise, and he'll still show up when needed. A tough outing in week 2 can be forgiven slightly because of how good we expect these Seahawks to be. Then, in week 3, it was another solid outing for Rodgers, with a 69.6% completion rate for 139 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception against a solid up-and-coming Patriots defense. The veteran QB started sharp, capitalizing on a fumble to set up a rushing touchdown for Kenny Gainwell on the opening drive. Then, on the second drive, he showed off his precision to convert a 3rd and 10 to Jonnu Smith before putting it right on the money for another of his new Steeler receivers for the touchdown just moments later in DK Metcalf. From that point onwards, it was the defense who did most of the heavy lifting, but the Steelers still needed some clutch moments from their number 8 down the stretch. Of course, he delivered. On 3rd and 6, with just 2 minutes to go, Rodgers threw one of his best passes of the day, showing elite touch and anticipation to find Calvin Austin on a back shoulder throw by the pylon. And with that, his Steelers went up by 21 points to 14, a lead that they would hold on to for the rest of the day. Now, there are clearly some areas that these Steelers need to clean up. The fact of the matter is, they are now 2-1. Rodgers has shown he still has the goods if supported well, and the rest of the AFC is shaky. In particular, with Joe Burrow going down in the division and the Bengals looking in deep trouble, this is a great opportunity for the Steelers to build momentum throughout the year and finish strong, something they have struggled to do in recent seasons. It's not always been pretty, but if Rodgers can keep this up and continue to gel with his new team, this is a real emerging contender in the AFC and beyond. After wasting 2 years of his career trying to resurrect the New York Jets, Rodgers is now in a much better place for one last shot at glory and one more chance to shut up the doubters. This is one of the most dangerous quarterbacks on planet Earth, and he's ready to remind any of the doubters and naysayers of that. With the aid of Mike Tomlin, DK Metcalf, and the Steelers defense, Aaron Rodgers is on a mission to let everyone, including his old team, know that he has still got it.